What's going on, everybody? It's just another day in the kitchen, back with another episode, and in today's video we're throwing it back 7 years to 2016 and taking a look at one of Travis Scott's lost merch drops. Yep, you saw the title. Today we're going to be taking a look at Travis Scott's Hood Toyota merch review. Now, it was only in September of 2016 when this story starts, after Travis dropped his second debut album, Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight. And before we go any further, I of course wanted to give a special shout out to the homie Strain Beats, who's been cooking up the beats for these videos. I really think that they've added a lot, so make sure you guys give them some love in the comments. And you might as well also drop a like and subscribe, as well as join our free Discord to stay up to date with the latest and the greatest. And shout out to all my chefs in there. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, it was in September of 2016 that LaFlame dropped Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight. It was definitely a banger, and a lot of the themes and aesthetics around it surrounded birds and eagles, which you'll see later throughout this video. Now, it was to everyone's surprise in November of 2016 that Travis Scott randomly announced a 3-show pop-up titled the Hood Toyota Events. And it was through a series of tweets and Instagram posts that Travis told us a little bit more about it. And essentially, these 3 pop-up shops were a cool way to test the market when it came to the merch. Now, if you've been following my channel for some time, you've seen that I've covered pretty much all of Travis's career when it comes to his merch, and if anything can be said, he's definitely been the king of it. And looking back in hindsight, these Hood Toyota events were honestly a cool way to connect with fans while also pushing some new merch. And it was in a 2016 interview with High Snobiety that Travis Scott described the Hood Toyota events as an extension of the merch booth. He goes on to mention that unfortunately he couldn't include a Camry with his merch booth, but he wanted to showcase something different. He goes on to mention that Camrys are special to him and he actually owned 3 at the time, and he goes on to mention that the pop-up shop idea of his is just an extension and evolution of the whole merch idea in theory. Now, I wanted to highlight some of the pieces that were available at these actual pop-up events, and you'll see them in better detail in just a little bit throughout the rest of this video. And if one thing's not been made clear, this merch drop definitely has to do with birds and pushing the whole theme about it. Now, given that this event was in 2016, I was curious how much these prices would be today. So I had to hop on the inflation calculator, and for a $45 tee, it would run you about $57 or about $60 with tax today. And perhaps the coolest part of the actual Hood Toyota pop-up events was the fact that LaFlame himself popped up at the LA event and did a little performance. I was able to actually find some footage, so I want you guys to see it here. Now, my favorite thing about these clips is that you can see just how lit and how important performing was to LaFlame all the way back in 2016. Whether he's out here bringing down the house for a show for his Utopia tour in 2023 today, or just performing for a small intimate venue like that for a couple of people 7 years ago, you can see just how much this meant to him. And while these 3 exclusive pop-up events were actually super lit, given that LaFlame himself popped out at them, and it looks like the cities were of course New York, Houston, and Los Angeles, one thing I did also uncover is the fact that fans had 72 hours to actually purchase some of the pieces that were available online. His website has always been the same at shop.travisscott.com, so I thought it would be cool for you guys to see just some of those pieces that were available. And although I wasn't able to uncover a whole lot of information in regards to shipping, if I were to compare this to the shipping times with the Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight album merch, I would expect that most of these pieces would ship anywhere between 6 and 8 weeks. sometimes even up to 12 weeks, just depending on which type of actual merch pieces they are. And for example, like the LA denim jacket right here for $300, I would expect that these pieces that are custom would take a little bit longer to ship and more so beyond the 8 to 12 week end. And I also wanted to point out something that caught my eye while doing research on this one is that a lot of these were printed on champion blanks to give you an idea of what the quality of these merch pieces were like. As you can see from the photo we were just looking at, the little champion logo was there, so Travis and his team were printing on that type of quality, which I think is pretty admirable given that they could have just printed on cheap Gildan at the time. Now, given that this was supposed to be just a very limited edition, exclusive kind of 3-show pop-up, I was just a little surprised to see the large variety and scope of all of the merch that was included for this drop. However, I'm not complaining as a fan of LaFlame, and if you were around during this era, I would love to know if you were actually able to pick up anything. And even if you weren't, I would love to know in the comments what you guys think about this drop. Now, speaking of public opinion, I also found these comments on an article while researching 7 years ago, and I think it's crazy to see how Travis Scott was getting a lot of hate back then. For those of you that weren't around, Travis Scott was basically known as the rapper that would rap a whole lot about nothing, except typical stuff like women, cars, money, getting high, and things like that, so a lot of people had a lot to say. Now, I just wanted to include the actual Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight merch drop for reference to give you an idea of how the Eagles were inspired and still carrying on the whole Birds aesthetic. As you can see from the majority of this merch drop, damn near every piece has some kind of eagle or something associated with the album. And given that this Hood Toyota merch pop-up was during the Birds era, it would make sense then that a lot of the merch that we saw also featured the same type of eagles on it. Now, looking back, I feel like Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight is kind of an overlooked album, especially given how lit and hype some of the other ones are. And I also thought it would be worth mentioning for the OG Travis Scott fan that, of course, on this album Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight, he's got the song Beebs in the Trap, which features that lyric about leaving the hood in a Toyota or a Camry and coming back in a Lambo. And to wrap up this video on Travis Scott's Hood Toyota pop-up merch drops, I wanted to share some exclusive footage. I think it's always sick when you guys can see just what it was like all those years ago, especially if you weren't able to attend, and I think it's cool to see some of these pieces. Honestly, that little flame hat beanie right there might have to be restocked because that's honestly pretty sick and something I would wear today. And when looking back at this Hood Toyota pop-up merch drop, I honestly think it's so special. Imagine being able to connect with your favorite artist like this in an intimate setting, and the fact that Travis was putting out this kind of effort just shows how he's been a real artist for so long. And I think it also just further proves how Travis Scott is truly the king of merch. From all of his collaborations throughout the years to these unique pop-up events, I don't think anybody can take that title away from him. And if you think differently, let me know in the comments. Now, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to know what you guys think. Like I said, this was a very obscure merch drop that I think was kind of lost in history, and I hope you guys learned something new. As always, thank you so much for cooking with the kitchen, and remember to stay safe out there. As always, remember, it's lit, straight up, and peace. And don't forget to join the free Discord. You dig?